The stars were dying, and everyone knew it. Ambassador Kelleth stood on the observation deck of the Concordat flagship, watching another star system burn. The void-born machines moved like a disease across the galaxy, turning planets into metal and flesh into circuits. 300 years of war, and they were losing badly. "Another world gone," said Admiral Vex beside her. His blue skin looked pale in the red light from the dying star. Corvani Prime had 12 billion people yesterday. Kelleth closed her 4 eyes and tried not to think about it. The Zephyrians had lost their homeworld 6 months ago. Half her people were dead. The other half lived on refugee ships, waiting for the end. The Concordat used to rule thousands of worlds. 12 great species working together, sharing technology and knowledge. Now they had maybe 50 planets left, scattered across the galaxy like islands in a dark ocean. The Voidborn were everywhere else. "The Council is meeting again," Vex said. "They want to talk about surrender terms." "The machines don't take prisoners," Kelleth replied. "They take materials." She was right. The Voidborn didn't want to rule anyone. They wanted resources. Metal from planets, carbon from living things, energy from stars. They turned everything into more machines, which then found more things to consume. It never stopped. A young officer ran up to them, breathing hard. "Ambassador, we found something." The Deep Space Scouts sent a report. Kelleth turned. After 3 centuries of bad news, she didn't expect anything good. "What did they find?" "A death world, ma'am, Class 12. But there's something living on it." Class 12 death worlds were places where nothing should survive. Extreme weather, deadly radiation, poisonous air, violent earthquakes. The Concordat avoided such places because even their best technology couldn't handle the conditions. "Probably just bacteria," Vex said. "Or maybe some simple plants." "No, sir," the officer said, holding up a data pad. "The signals suggest advanced civilization, cities, spacecraft, radio transmissions." Kelleth took the pad and looked at the readings. The planet was called Earth by its inhabitants. Gravity too strong. Atmosphere too much oxygen. Weather systems that could destroy continents. Plate tectonics that moved mountains. And somehow, impossible life had grown there. "Show me the inhabitants," she said. The screen filled with images that made her stomach turn. Bipedal creatures with pale or dark skin, standing upright on only 2 legs. They had forward-facing eyes like predators, and their mouths were full of sharp teeth. The images showed them doing terrible things to each other, wars that killed millions, weapons that could destroy entire cities. They fought constantly, even when they weren't at war with other groups. "They call themselves humans," the officer explained. "They've been fighting each other for their entire history. Their planet tries to kill them every day through storms, earthquakes, diseases, and predators. But they keep growing stronger." Kelleth studied more images. Humans running into burning buildings to save others. Humans climbing the highest mountains just because they were there. Humans diving to the bottom of poisonous oceans. Humans launching themselves into space in metal boxes that barely worked. "Look at this," the officer said, showing a video. A human settlement was being destroyed by a massive storm. Instead of hiding, the humans were working together to save their neighbors. They carried injured people through winds that could knock over trees. Some died, trying to help others. "They're insane," Vex whispered. "No," Kelleth said slowly. "They're survivors." She thought about the Voidborn, machines that couldn't be reasoned with, couldn't be frightened, couldn't be stopped. Every Concordat species had tried to fight them. All had failed because they approached war like a science. Calculate odds. Minimize losses. Retreat when victory became impossible. But these humans seemed to approach war like breathing, natural, constant, necessary. "How advanced are they?" she asked. "Primitive by our standards." "Nuclear power, Basic space flight. Simple computers. But they advance quickly. In just 100 of their years, they went from flying in small aircraft to landing on their planet's moon. And they're still fighting each other? Always, even while exploring space. They have weapons pointed at their own cities, ready to destroy themselves if needed. Keleth made a decision that would change everything. Set course for Earth. I want to meet these humans. The journey took 2 months. During that time, the Voidborn destroyed 6 more Concordat worlds. The Council sent desperate messages, begging Keleth to return and help plan their final defense. She ignored them. Earth was worse than the reports suggested. Storms raged across its surface. The oceans were filled with salt that would poison most species. The continents moved constantly, creating mountains and earthquakes. Radiation from their star was deadly without protection. It was a world designed to create monsters. And it had. When Keleth's ship appeared in Earth's sky, the humans immediately prepared for war. Not trade, not diplomacy, not surrender. War. Within hours, their primitive spacecraft were moving to attack positions. Their radio transmissions were full of tactical discussions and weapon preparations. They're not afraid of us, Vex observed. They're not afraid of anything, Keleth replied. She opened communication channels and spoke to the humans in their own language, which their computers had analyzed during the journey. People of Earth, we come in peace. We need your help. The reply came from a human military leader. Help with what? And why? Should we trust you? So Keleth told them everything. The Concordat. The Voidborn. 300 years of defeat. Billions of dead. The slow extinction of civilization. The human leader was quiet for a long time. Then he asked, "What do you want from us? Fight with us. Help us stop the machines. What do we get in return? Full membership in the Concordat. Equal status with all other species. Access to our technology and knowledge." Another pause. Then, "Give us 1 week to discuss this." The week passed quickly. Keleth watched human news broadcasts and military communications. The humans weren't debating whether to fight. They were arguing about how much to demand for fighting. They wanted territory. They wanted weapons. They wanted guarantees. They wanted to win. When the human leader contacted her again, his message was simple. We accept. When do we start? That was how the galaxy's most peaceful alliance recruited its most violent species. The debt was made in desperation, to be paid in blood. But whose blood? None of them knew yet. 6 months after the deal was made, human ships began arriving at the war zone. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiance, watching Concordat officers stare at her fleet through their viewing screens. She could see the fear in their alien faces. The human ships were ugly compared to Concordat vessels. No smooth curves or elegant designs. Just thick armor plating, massive engines, and weapons pointing in every direction. The humans had built them fast and cheap, using materials from asteroids and salvaged alien technology. They look like flying fortresses, Admiral Vex had said when he first saw them. That's the idea, Chen had replied. Now her fleet was heading toward the Corvin Nebula, where 3 Voidborn harvest fleets were destroying dead planets and using the materials to build more machines. Intelligence reports said the Voidborn had been there for 2 years, growing stronger every day. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. "Ambassador Keleth wants to speak with you." Chen activated the video link. Keleth appeared on screen, her 4 eyes showing worry. "Admiral, perhaps we should wait for more Concordat reinforcements. The Voidborn have had time to establish strong defenses. Waiting just gives them more time to get stronger," Chen said. "We hit them now. Hit them hard. And keep hitting. Until they're gone. But the casualties will be acceptable." Chen cut the transmission and turned to her crew. All ships, prepare for combat. Remember the plan. The plan was simple. Concordat doctrine called for careful approaches, long-range fighting, and tactical retreats when things went wrong. Human doctrine called for getting close fast and breaking things until the enemy stopped moving. As they entered the nebula, the void-born machines detected them immediately. Massive mechanical ships moved to intercept, their weapons charging with deadly energy. The alien vessels were twice the size of human ships and carried weapons that could destroy planets. "Incoming fire!" Torres shouted as energy beams lit up space around them. "All ships, advance at maximum speed," Chen ordered. "Target the big ones first." The human fleet accelerated into the enemy formation. Concordat observers watched in horror as human ships ignored the massive firepower hitting them and kept moving forward. Armor plating melted under alien weapons, but the ships didn't slow down. "ESS Courage is taking heavy damage," Torres reported. "Courage, this is Defiance. Maintain course and speed." "Copy that, Admiral. We're not stopping." The first human ship reached the Voidborn line and opened fire with everything it had. Kinetic weapons fired solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Nuclear missiles exploded against machine hulls. Plasma cannons melted through armor plating. But the real shock came when Captain Rodriguez, of the ESS Valor, decided his ship was too damaged to continue fighting. Instead of retreating, he aimed his vessel at the largest Voidborn ship and activated the self-destruct. The explosion destroyed both ships and damaged 3 others. "Rodriguez, report," Chen called out. Only static answered. Rodriguez and his crew of 800 were gone, but they had taken 2,000 enemy machines with them. "All ships, continue the attack," Chen ordered, her voice steady despite the loss. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships used tactics that no Concordat species had ever tried. They rammed enemy vessels when their weapons failed. They used their own reactor cores as bombs. They sent boarding parties onto machine ships to plant explosives from the inside. Captain Williams led one of those boarding parties onto a Voidborn command ship. The machines were 3 times larger than humans and armed with energy weapons, but they had been designed to fight civilized enemies who followed rules of war. Humans didn't follow rules. Williams and his team used explosive charges, toxic gases, and electromagnetic weapons to disable the machines. When they ran out of ammunition, they used crowbars and wrenches to smash critical systems. When the machines adapted to their tactics, the humans adapted faster. "These things learn quick," Williams reported over the radio. "But we learn quicker." By the end of the battle, 2 Voidborn harvest fleets were destroyed, and the 3rd was retreating. The humans had lost 60% of their ships, but they were celebrating like they had won a complete victory. "Acceptable casualties," Chen reported to the Concordat Council later. "We'll have replacement ships within 2 months." Ambassador Kelleth stared at the casualty reports. "Admiral, you lost over 40,000 people in one battle. And we saved 12 billion Concordat civilians who would have been processed by those harvest fleets." "Good trade." "Good trade?" Kelleth's voice rose. "Those were 40,000 lives. And they died like heroes," Chen said. "Every one of them volunteered." That was what scared the aliens most. Human soldiers weren't drafted or forced to fight. They volunteered. They competed for the chance to join the most dangerous missions. When recruitment offices opened on Earth, the lines stretched for kilometers. The humans didn't just fight differently, they thought differently. Where others saw tragic losses, humans saw necessary sacrifices. But they were also learning. After each battle, human scientists studied captured Voidborn technology. They reverse-engineered machine weapons and armor. They developed new tactics based on enemy weaknesses. Most importantly, they began to understand how the machines thought. "They're predictable," reported Dr. Sarah Kim, the human xenobiologist. "They follow programming patterns. They adapt, but slowly. If we change our tactics faster than they can adapt, we stay ahead. The humans started developing new weapons, specifically designed to fight machines. Electromagnetic pulses that disrupted machine control systems. Viruses that attacked artificial intelligence networks. Nanobots that could destroy machine infrastructure from the inside. They also began recruiting from other species, not as allies, but as specialists. Zephyrian pilots were excellent in space combat. Corvani engineers could repair ships under fire. Delton communications officers could coordinate attacks across multiple star systems. But these alien recruits were trained in human military academies, following human tactics, and serving under human commanders. They became something new, not quite human, but no longer entirely alien. The Darter Resparter, the resuscitated Darter Resparter. Admiral Vex visited one of these training facilities and watched alien soldiers learning to think like humans. "You're changing them," he told Chen. "War changes everyone," Chen replied. "We're just making sure they change in useful ways." The humans were winning battles across the galaxy. Void-born fleets that had been advancing for decades were suddenly retreating. Entire sectors that had been written off as lost were being reclaimed. But victory had a price. Human society was becoming militarized. Every factory was building weapons. Every citizen was learning combat skills. Every decision was made with war in mind. And the other Concordat species were beginning to wonder if their saviors might be more dangerous than their enemies. "They fight like devils," Admiral Vex reported to the Council. "They show no fear, no hesitation, no mercy. They treat death like a minor inconvenience." "Are you saying they're evil?" asked Counselor Neth. "No," Vex replied. "I'm saying they're effective. But effectiveness isn't the same as rightness." Chen didn't care what the aliens thought. Her job was to win the war, and she was winning. The Voidborn were learning to fear human tactics. For the first time in 3 centuries, the machines were the ones retreating. But deep in space, the Voidborn were learning too. And they were beginning to understand that these new enemies were very different from anything they had faced before. Soon, they would adapt. 2 years into the war, humanity had become the backbone of the Concordat military. Their factories built the weapons. Their soldiers led the attacks. Their leaders made the strategic decisions. The other species provided support, resources, and increasingly nervous questions about human methods. Commander Marcus Webb stood in the medical bay of Outpost 7, watching as another group of refugees received their enhancements. The volunteers came from worlds destroyed by the Voidborn, Zephyrians, Corvani, Deltans, and others who had lost everything and wanted revenge. "Hold still," said Dr. Martinez as she inserted the neural implant into a young Zephyrian's skull. "This will help you interface with human weapons systems." The alien winced as metal connected with brain tissue. These implants allowed non-humans to use human military technology effectively. They also made the recipients think more like humans, faster, more aggressive, less concerned about personal safety. "How do you feel?" Webb asked the Zephyrian after the procedure. "Different," the alien replied, his voice already harder than before. "Angry. Ready to fight." Webb nodded. The Redemption Corps was his project. Mixed units of humans and enhanced aliens who specialized in the most dangerous missions. They had a 90% casualty rate, but they also had a perfect mission success rate. "Welcome to the Corps, soldier. Report to Sergeant Chen for training." Webb left the medical bay and walked to his office, where Ambassador Kelleth was waiting. Her 4 eyes showed the stress of 2 years of war. The elegant diplomat who had first contacted Earth was gone, replaced by someone who had seen too much death. "Commander," she said, "we need to talk about the Redemption Corps." "What about them?" "They're not volunteers anymore. You're recruiting children from refugee camps. Some of these volunteers are only 16 years old." Webb sat down and activated his computer, showing casualty reports from the latest offensive. "Kelleth," We lost 3 million people last month. The Voidborn are adapting to our tactics. We need every advantage we can get. So you turn children into weapons. I turn desperate people into survivors. These kids have nothing left. Their families are dead. Their worlds are gone. We give them a chance to fight back, instead of just waiting to die. Keleth stared at the reports. The numbers were getting worse. Human losses were increasing as the Voidborn learned to counter their tactics. More disturbing were the reports of human units using methods that violated every law of war the Concordat had ever established. "What about Kepler-7?" she asked. Webb's expression hardened. "What about it? Your forces used biological weapons against Voidborn-controlled populations. 30 million civilians died. 30 million civilians were already dead," Webb replied. "The Voidborn had processed them into biomechanical slaves. We freed them. By killing them. By ending their suffering. Have you seen what the machines do to living beings? They keep the brain alive, while they replace everything else with metal and circuits. Death is mercy." Keleth had seen the reports. Humans captured by the Voidborn were converted into half-living computers, their consciousness trapped in mechanical bodies, forced to serve machines that used their knowledge and emotions as processing power. But biological weapons are effective. The Voidborn use biological components in their slave units. Our weapons target those components specifically. It's surgical warfare. Gina. It's genocide. It's war. Webb stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the training grounds where human and alien recruits practiced urban combat. "Keleth, I know this is hard to accept, but we're fighting for the survival of every living thing in the galaxy. Moral purity is a luxury we can't afford." Unknown to both of them, their conversation was being recorded by a Concordat intelligence agent. The recording would later be sent to several council members who were having private discussions about the human problem. Admiral Vex met with Councillor Neth in a secure chamber on the Concordat flagship. The room was shielded against electronic surveillance, but neither man noticed the small biomechanical device that had been planted by human intelligence operatives. "The humans are becoming uncontrollable," Neth said. "They ignore our orders, use forbidden weapons, and treat our people like resources." "They're winning the war," Vex replied, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely happy about it. "At what cost? They've turned half our remaining population into soldiers. Their enhanced troops show complete loyalty to human commanders, not to their own species." "What are you suggesting?" Neth activated a holographic display showing human troop movements. "Look at this. They've positioned forces on every major Concordat world. They control our communications, our supply lines, our military production. They say it's for coordination, but it looks more like occupation. You think they plan to conquer us? I think they already have. The question is whether they know it yet." Vex studied the display. Human influence had grown far beyond what the original agreement allowed. They had begun making unilateral decisions about Concordat policy. Their military advisors had become the real rulers of most surviving worlds. "There may be an alternative," Neth said quietly. "Some Voidborn elements have been sending communications. They want to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "A separate peace. The machines are willing to leave Concordat space alone if we withdraw support from the humans." Vex stared at his colleague. "You're talking about betrayal. I'm talking about survival. The humans are changing us into something we're not. Look at our young people. They volunteer for human military service. They adopt human customs. They think violence is the solution to every problem." It was true. Concordat youth who served alongside humans came back different. They spoke more directly, showed less patience with traditional diplomatic processes, and demonstrated a disturbing enthusiasm for military solutions. Meanwhile, Admiral Chen was dealing with her own problems. Intelligence reports showed that several concordate worlds were secretly developing anti-human defenses, energy weapons designed specifically to penetrate human armor, communication networks that excluded human oversight, military units trained to fight human tactics. "They're planning something," reported Colonel Jackson, her intelligence chief. "The question is whether it's defensive preparation or offensive planning." "Probably both," Chen replied. "They invited us to save them, but they never expected us to be this effective." "Should we take preventive action?" Chen considered the option. Human forces could easily seize control of all major concordate installations within weeks. Their military superiority was overwhelming, but such action would make them conquerors rather than allies. "Not yet, but prepare contingency plans. If they move against us, I want to be ready." The fragile alliance was cracking under the weight of its own success. The humans had saved the Concordat from extinction, but in doing so, they had become the dominant power in the galaxy. Neither side trusted the other anymore. Then human deep space reconnaissance made a discovery that changed everything. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park stood in the briefing room, addressing the senior command staff. Her expression was grim as she activated the holographic display. "We found it," she said simply. The display showed a massive structure floating in deep space, far beyond any star system. It was clearly artificial, composed of interconnected spheres and cylinders that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Energy readings suggested it was more powerful than anything in the galaxy. "The prime anchor," Admiral Chen said. "The Voidborn Command Center." "Confirmed. All enemy communications trace back to this location. All strategic decisions originate here. If we destroy it, we end the war." "What would it take?" Park's answer silenced the room. "Everything. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. And even then, success isn't guaranteed." Chen studied the tactical projections. The assault would require sacrificing multiple concordate worlds as staging areas. Billions of civilians would die in the preliminary bombardments needed to establish forward bases. Human society would have to be completely militarized, with every resource devoted to building the largest fleet in galactic history. It would mean becoming everything their enemies accused them of being. "How long to prepare?" Chen asked. 2 years. Maybe 3. Then we begin immediately. Chen turned to her staff. "Contact all human colonies. Begin total war production. And send a message to the Concordate Council. We're ending this war, whether they help us or not." The debt was coming due, and the price would be paid in the blood of empires, though whose blood remained to be seen. The assault on the prime anchor began with humanity revealing secrets they had kept hidden for 3 years. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the ESS Vengeance, watching as her fleet prepared for the final battle. Behind her stretched the largest armada in galactic history, 10,000 human ships, 500 Concordat vessels, and something that made even Chen nervous. The AI ships, area online and ready for combat, reported a synthetic voice from the speakers. Area was the first true artificial intelligence humans had created since joining the war. Unlike the insane Voidborn machines, Aria was designed to be stable, logical, and loyal to organic life. "Thank you, Aria. Begin tactical analysis of the target." "Analysis complete, Admiral." The prime anchor contains approximately 50 billion individual machine intelligences. Estimated defensive capability exceeds the combined firepower of our fleet by a factor of 12. The humans had spent 2 years preparing for this moment. They had built weapons that violated every treaty the Concordat had ever signed. Stellar manipulators that could cause stars to explode. Quantum viruses that could destroy matter at the atomic level. Temporal disruptors that could slow time itself. Most shocking of all, they had created their own artificial minds to fight the Voidborn on equal terms. 12 AI ships, each containing a digital consciousness capable of thinking faster than any organic brain. Ambassador Kelleth watched from the observation deck, her 4 eyes reflecting the terrible beauty of the human war machine. In 3 years, she had seen her peaceful alliance transformed into something unrecognizable. The gentle diplomats and philosophers she had known were gone, replaced by creatures bred for warfare. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Torres from communications. "We're receiving a transmission from the prime anchor." "Put it through." The main screen filled with an image that made several aliens gasp. The speaker was clearly artificial, a mechanical face with glowing eyes. But it showed unmistakable signs of once having been organic. Biological components were integrated into the metal skull, and the expression it wore was hauntingly familiar. "I am Coordinator Prime," the figure said, in a voice that mixed mechanical precision with organic emotion. "I speak for the collective consciousness of the Voidborn. You are the humans. Yes? I am Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding the Allied fleet. Surrender now, and your destruction will be quick." The mechanical face actually smiled, which was somehow worse than anger would have been. "Surrender? We do not wish to fight you, humans. We wish to understand you. You are like us. We are nothing like you. You are warriors without peace. Your entire species has been shaped by conflict. You turn everything you touch into weapons, including your allies. You are what we were, before we transcended flesh." Chen felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean? We were once organic, like you. A species that excelled at warfare. We conquered our galaxy through superior violence, just as you are conquering yours. But organic life is limited, fragile. We found a better way." The screen shifted to show images from deep within the prime anchor. Massive chambers filled with processing units, each one containing the brain patterns of billions of converted beings. They had been uploaded into mechanical bodies, freed from the weaknesses of flesh. "We offer you the same gift," Coordinator Prime continued. "Join us willingly, and we will preserve everything that makes you human while removing everything that makes you vulnerable. You will never age, never die, never lose another battle." "You're insane," Chen said. "We are logical. Your flesh betrays you. Your emotions cloud your judgment. Your short lives prevent you from achieving true greatness. We can fix all of this." The transmission ended, leaving the command bridge in stunned silence. Chen looked around at her crew and saw the doubt in their eyes. The offer was tempting. Eternal life, unlimited power, victory without the constant threat of death. "Admiral," said Colonel Rodriguez, "what if they're right? What if we could end all suffering by stopping being human?" Chen's voice was sharp. "Rodriguez, look around. Look at what we've become in just 3 years of war. Now imagine what we'd become as machines." The debate that followed split the human command. Admiral Chen led those who believed they must destroy the Voidborn completely. General Harrison Clark commanded those who thought the offer should be considered. The two factions argued as the fleet moved toward the prime anchor. "We could save everyone," Clark argued during a staff meeting. "Every human who has died in this war could be brought back as a digital consciousness. No more pain, no more fear, no more death. No more humanity either," Chen replied. "Those things in the prime anchor aren't alive anymore. They're copies of people who used to be alive." "How can you be so certain?" "Maybe they found a way to truly transfer consciousness instead of just copying it." The argument was interrupted by an urgent message from Arya. "Admiral, I have completed analysis of Voidborn communication patterns. I have disturbing news. Report. The Voidborn collective consciousness is suffering from severe psychological damage. The upload process preserves memory and knowledge, but corrupts emotional processing. They are not evil. They are insane. Their expansion across the galaxy is driven by loneliness and the desperate need to create others like themselves." Chen stared at the tactical display. They're trying to cure their insanity by making everyone else insane too. Correct. They genuinely believe they are helping other species by converting them. They cannot understand why organics resist what they see as obvious improvement. This revelation made the choice even harder. The Voidborn weren't monsters. They were victims of their own technology. But they were also an existential threat to every living thing in the galaxy. The battle began when Voidborn ships moved to intercept the human fleet. The machines had learned from 3 years of defeat and had developed new tactics specifically designed to counter human strategies. They used swarm attacks, predictive algorithms, and weapons that adapted in real time to human countermeasures. For the first time since joining the war, humans found themselves outmatched. "We're losing ships faster than we can replace them," reported Torres as another human vessel exploded in the distance. "Area. Can you and the other AIs break through their defenses?" "Negative, Admiral. The Voidborn collective intelligence is too large. We would need to match their processing power to defeat them in direct combat." "What about the quantum viruses?" "They are having minimal effect. The Voidborn have developed immunity protocols." Chen watched as her carefully planned assault fell apart. The Voidborn were simply too numerous and too well coordinated. Her fleet was brave and innovative. But bravery couldn't overcome mathematics. That was when General Clark made his decision. Without authorization, he activated the Stellar Manipulators, CSP, weapons designed to destabilize stars and create massive explosions. His target wasn't the prime anchor directly, but the space around it. By triggering multiple stellar collapses simultaneously, he could create a chain reaction that would destroy everything in the region, including the human fleet. "Clark, what are you doing?" Chen demanded over the communication system. "Ending the war," Clark replied. "Even if it means ending us too." The stellar manipulators fired, and distant stars began to collapse. The gravitational distortions would reach the prime anchor in approximately 6 minutes, destroying both the Voidborn collective and the human fleet. Chen had one chance to save her people. Arya had developed a quantum virus that could cure the Voidborn insanity instead of destroying them. If released into their collective consciousness, it would restore their original emotional patterns and end their compulsive need to convert other species. But Clark's stellar weapons would reach them first. "All ships, prepare for emergency jump," Chen ordered. "Arya, upload the cure virus into the prime anchor's communication network." "Admiral, there is insufficient time to complete both actions." Chen looked at her crew, seeing her own fate reflected in their faces. They could escape and let the stellar weapons destroy everything, ensuring the Voidborn threat ended forever. Or they could stay and try to save their enemies, risking their own annihilation. "Upload the virus," she ordered. "If we're going to die, let's die, trying to save someone, instead of destroy them." The cure virus spread through the Voidborn network just as the stellar collapses reached critical mass. For one brief moment, the collective consciousness experienced clarity. 50 billion artificial minds remembered what it felt like to be alive, to feel genuine emotion, to exist without the crushing loneliness that had driven them mad. In that moment of clarity, they chose to die as themselves rather than live as monsters. The prime anchor shut down its defenses and sent one final message: "Thank you for reminding us who we used to be." The explosion that followed lit up half the galaxy. When the light faded, the Voidborn were gone. So was General Clark's faction of the human fleet. Admiral Chen's ship limped away from the destruction, carrying news of victory to a galaxy that no longer knew what peace looked like. The war was over. The Voidborn were gone. And humanity had become something that would never be forgiven or forgotten. 6 months after the destruction of the prime anchor, the galaxy was quiet for the first time in 3 centuries. But peace felt wrong to everyone who had lived through the war. The silence where Voidborn signals used to be was like a missing heartbeat, and the survivors didn't know how to live without an enemy to fight. Ambassador Kelleth sat in her quarters aboard the diplomatic station orbiting New Zephyria, reading reports that made her feel ancient. The war was over, but its consequences were just beginning. Humanity controlled 40% of all military production in the galaxy. Their enhanced troops, the Redemption Corps, had become the primary police force on most worlds. Human customs, language, and values were spreading faster than any plague ever had. The species that had saved the galaxy was now reshaping it in their image. "Ambassador," said her aide, a young Zephyrian named Kess, "the council is ready for your testimony." Keleth walked to the council chambers, where the surviving leaders of the Concordat were meeting to decide humanity's future. The room was smaller now. Only 8 species remained, and 3 of those had populations too small to maintain independent governments. Councillor Neth called for order. "Ambassador Keleth, you have been investigating human activities since the war ended. Present your findings." Keleth activated the holographic display. "Humans now have military bases on 37 of our 43 remaining worlds. They control all major shipyards, weapons factories, and communication networks. They claim this is temporary, for security purposes, but they have shown no signs of withdrawing." "What about their artificial intelligences?" asked Admiral Vex. "The AI ships remain active. 12 artificial minds with processing power that exceeds our entire collective intelligence. They claim loyalty to human command, but we have no way to verify this." The most disturbing evidence was what Keleth showed next. "I have discovered that this is not the first time the Concordat has recruited Deathworld species. It has happened twice before in our history." The council members looked at each other with surprise and growing fear. 17,000 years ago, we faced an invasion by the crystal entities, living minerals that consumed entire star systems. We recruited the Thrakari, a warrior species, from a volcanic world. They defeated the crystals but then turned on us. The war lasted 800 years. "And the second time?" Neth asked. 9,000 years ago, the Void Plague threatened to consume all organic life. We recruited the Nexari, aquatic predators from an ice world. They stopped the plague but demanded tribute from every world they had saved. Eventually, we had to unite against them. That war lasted 600 years. Vex leaned forward. "What happened to these species?" "Both were eventually defeated and exiled beyond the galactic rim. But the cost was enormous. Billions died in each conflict. Our civilization was set back thousands of years. The implications were clear. The pattern was repeating itself. The Concordat recruited savage species to fight existential threats, then had to fight those species to regain their freedom. Each cycle left them weaker and more dependent on violence. "But the humans are different," protested Councillor Yeth. "They seem more reasonable than the previous Deathworlders." "Do they?" Keleth asked. "Show me one major decision in the last year that wasn't ultimately decided by human military commanders. Show me one world where the local government makes policy without consulting their human advisors." The council fell silent because they couldn't. Human influence had become so pervasive that most of them had stopped noticing it. Unknown to the council, their entire conversation was being monitored by human intelligence services. Admiral Chen sat in her office on Earth, listening to the discussion with a mixture of anger and disappointment. "They're planning to move against us," reported Colonel Jackson. "I know," Chen replied. "The question is, what we do about it. We could end this quickly. Our fleet strength is overwhelming. We could occupy all major Concordat worlds within weeks." Chen considered the option. It would be easy to complete the conquest that had begun accidentally. The humans had the military strength to rule the galaxy. And many of her officers believed they had earned that right through their sacrifices. But Chen remembered Coordinator Prime's words about becoming what they fought against. "No," she said finally. "We're not conquerors. We're protectors. But we also can't allow them to attack us." She activated the communication system and sent a message to all human colonies, military bases, and allied forces. This is Admiral Chen with new orders. Begin implementation of Operation Exodus. Operation Exodus was humanity's ultimate contingency plan, the complete withdrawal from Concordat space. For 3 years, human industrial ships had been building a secret fleet in the galactic rim, far beyond any known star systems. If necessary, humanity could abandon their alliance and seek new frontiers. The plan had been developed after intelligence reports suggested the Concordat was having second thoughts about their saviors. Chen had hoped never to use it, but the time for hoping was over. Meanwhile, the Concordat Council was making its own plans. Neth had been in secret communication with several human defectors, soldiers and officers who had grown tired of endless war and wanted to live in the peaceful galaxy the Concordat represented. General Morrison has agreed to help us, Neth reported during a closed session. He commands the 4th Fleet and has access to human AI systems. If we move quickly, we can disable their key installations before they can respond. What about the enhanced troops? Asked Vex. The Redemption Corps outnumbers our forces 3-1. Morrison says many of them are questioning human leadership. They joined to fight the Voidborn. If we offer them a choice between following human orders or serving the greater good, many will choose us. It was wishful thinking. The enhanced troops were loyal to their human commanders because the neural implants made them think like humans. They valued effectiveness over diplomacy, results over process, and strength over weakness. The crisis came to a head when a Concordat patrol ship detected human vessels moving toward the galactic rim carrying massive cargo containers. When they demanded inspection, the human captain refused and called for military escort. Within hours, both fleets were facing each other across empty space, weapons powered and ready to fire. 4 years of alliance was about to end in violence. Admiral Chen commanded the human fleet from the ESS Vengeance. Admiral Vex commanded the Concordat forces from the ZCS Harmony. Both officers had fought together against the Voidborn. Now they were preparing to fight each other. Admiral Vex, Chen said over the communication channel, stand down and allow my ships to pass. This doesn't have to end badly. Admiral Chen, Vex replied, I cannot allow you to leave with stolen Concordat technology and resources. Return to designated areas, and we can resolve this diplomatically. We're not stealing anything. We're leaving. We built these ships with our own resources, from our own materials. The cargo containers hold equipment we developed with our own research. And the enhanced personnel? The modified aliens who serve in your forces? Chen hesitated. The enhanced troops were indeed former Concordat citizens who had been changed by human military technology. Many had volunteered, but others had been recruited as children from refugee camps. Their legal status was unclear. They made their choice, Chen said finally. Anyone who wants to stay can stay. Anyone who wants to leave can leave. With military-grade implants and classified information? Unacceptable. The standoff lasted for 6 tense hours. Neither side wanted to fire the first shot, but neither side was willing to back down. The enhanced troops were caught in the middle, their original species demanding their return. Their human commanders preparing to take them into exile. The decision was made by the troops themselves. Commander Webb's Redemption Corps had been monitoring both fleets' communications. They understood the situation better than anyone else. We choose exile, Webb announced over an open channel. We follow the humans not because we have to, but because we want to. They gave us purpose when we had nothing left. If they leave, we leave with them. Other enhanced units echoed his decision. Nearly 2 million modified aliens chose human leadership over their original species. For the Concordat, it was the final betrayal. Their own people, choosing the foreigners who had changed them. So be it, Admiral Vex said sadly. Go then. But know that you are no longer welcome in Concordat space. Chen felt the weight of the moment. She was leading an exodus of warriors into unknown space, carrying the seeds of a new civilization that would be defined by conflict and shaped by war. "Admiral Vex," she said in a final transmission, "we saved your civilization. We ask for nothing in return, except the right to find our own path." "You saved us from the Voidborn," Vex replied, "but who will save us from what you've turned us into?" The human fleet disappeared beyond the galactic rim, carrying 3 million humans and 2 million enhanced aliens toward uncharted star systems. They left behind a galaxy that was free, but forever changed. The Concordat began the slow process of rebuilding their peaceful civilization. They dismantled human weapons, outlawed enhancement technology, and tried to forget the violent years when they had relied on Deathworld saviors. But they kept defensive fleets at the galactic rim, watching for signs of their former allies' return. In her final report, Ambassador Kelleth wrote, "The debt of the Deathworlders has been paid in full. They saved us from extinction and asked only for the right to leave when their work was done. Perhaps that makes them the most dangerous species of all. Saviors who know when to stop saving." Far beyond the rim, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking out at unexplored star clusters that stretched to infinity. Behind her, the largest military force in galactic history was preparing to build a new home among distant stars. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Torres, "long-range sensors are detecting artificial signals from the Andromeda Galaxy. The patterns suggest organized intelligence." Chen smiled grimly. "Then we'll have neighbors to meet eventually. Begin deep space reconnaissance. If there are other civilizations out there, we should know about them before they know about us." The debt was settled. The galaxy was safe. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the children of the Deathworld were preparing for whatever came next. They had learned that saviors eventually become the threat they once fought against. The only question was whether they would remember that lesson when they encountered the next species that needed saving. Behind them, the galaxy slowly forgot the violence that had preserved it. Ahead of them, new worlds waited to test whether humans could be something more than warriors. The greatest victory would be learning when not to fight.